Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you for another Film Fanatic show. So, hope everyone's doing good. It is today is July 1st. It's hard to believe. We are officially, officially into summer. So, I hope everyone's doing good. Yeah, the weather has not been great. It's supposed to be pretty crappy. It's been a sustained campaign of not very nice weather. Lots of rain. It's been very gray and overcast and dreary. Pretty much rains every day. Occasionally we have a nice day. We had a really nice Sunday last weekend. That was such a strange weekend. It was our last Quantum gig that we had, and it was super weird because it was a beautiful day. It was super nice, and then but nobody showed up. And I ran into a couple of friends and some people that were going to go to the show because it was outdoors, and where they live, which is like the next town over in Rockland, it was raining apparently a lot, and so they were like, "Oh, it's probably canceled, so we're not going to go." And so very weird, but it was still pretty fun. We played out there, but it was weird because there was literally nobody out there, and uh, we've done that show for we've played out in the amphitheater for years, and so it was a big surprise, but it's when you do shows, when you book shows and all of those things that entails, it's kind of like you know um, it's kind of like luck of the draw. You can promote things as much as you want, and obviously promotion really helps. The more you promote things, and in a lot of ways with social media, it's a little bit easier to promote things and to let people know what's going on, or at least maybe pique their curiosity. With all of the different social platforms, mostly it seems to be centered on like Facebook and Instagram and things, but and there still is some printed press. There are still some outlets that you can use for that. So all those things help. Getting a plug on the radio station, but at the same time, it's always a luck of the draw, and it doesn't. It's never nothing's guaranteed, and that's not guaranteed. But at least when you promote, at least in my head, like if I do a show, I've booked a lot of shows for Quantum. I do all of the shows for that band, and I do all of the booking, and I do all the promotion, and it's a lot of work around that, but I love it. So I realize since I've been doing it for a while, I every season or every year I feel like I gain a little bit more. Hopefully, I gain a little bit more knowledge about new things to try to promote events and shows, and also new ideas. But hopefully I get better at it. I think I've gotten better at promoting things over the years. But and then it also depends on the event too, like what kind of promotion you want to try to use. Like we did the All Roads Festival, and that was a little bit of a different thing because that more or less the people who run that festival do a ton of promotion for it. So I did promotion on my own, but it wasn't the typical way of doing it. So because I knew that to a degree there's already a buzz around it. There's a built-in audience for the people who were going to go to the 2 day event. So I did it a little bit differently. And usually with the show that we just did last weekend at the library, usually that's the case of where the setting is very laid back. It's an outdoor show. It's a free show that we do, and it's a you know usually it just caters to usually in Camden, Maine at that time of the year or this time of year, there are tons of people walking around. There's the tourists are here. There's foot traffic, people coming and going. So usually I do promotion for that show, but I don't do a lot of promotion because in the past we've always just had you know people coming and going, foot traffic. You have, and then you have an audience of people that come and listen to the show, and you just have that kind of ebb and flow. It's a different kind of thing as opposed to booking a show at a venue, or a club or an event where it's a one-off kind of thing. And then where there's a place where there's maybe it could be at a bar, like say the Gypsy Rose, or an event where there's a bar. It's a bar, people can get drinks and food and whatnot. So it's a different kind of thing. But I usually do a decent amount of promotion around that show. I don't do a heavy amount of promotion. Not like I would, like say if I was, you know, like I said before, playing a regular event, like if we were playing at Threshers or a club or what have you. I usually do a pretty decent amount of promotion. I'll do a little post on Instagram about it, and then I'll usually do a big promotion of it on Facebook. And then the library also does a pretty good amount of promotion for it also, and it's usually in the papers. So I usually keep it, a little bit to a minimalist. It's a little bit of a minimalist kind of thing, and I don't usually put up an event page for it because it's in the past I feel like haven't really hasn't been a thing that's really needed because it's a different kind of format and a different setting. And so I kind of more or less did the same exact thing that I always do. So I don't know what happened, but it is what it is, and it was still fun. It ended up being a beautiful day, so that was cool. And it's always fun to mix things up, test new material. Luckily with Quantum we have a lot of music, so I try to always mix up the sets quite a bit whenever we play. We never have like formalized set lists for the band. We usually just pick tunes as we go. I'm kind of the captain of the train, so I just whatever the vibe is and whatever's kind of happening, like if there's people there or not, or it's a mellow kind of setting. But for usually the longer gigs, we tend to do a lot of the first part of the show. We tend to do a lot of like mellow ambient stuff, and then we slowly build it. But if we do shows of where we're playing, where maybe it's more of a dance kind of thing, we'll start off maybe a little slow, or we'll go right into it. Like with the All Roads Festival, people were partying already, and people were drinking and having a good time, and it was that kind of party atmosphere. So like with that show or shows, we just kind of went into the heavier, deeper dance stuff sooner than we normally would, to try to like keep the energy going, build it up, but keep the energy sustained, hopefully. And then, and it was and again, it's a different beast because that Friday show that we played at the All Roads Festival was at the Three Tides, and that's a bar, and that's it's a beautiful atmosphere. But people have been seeing lots of music, people have been partying a lot, people drink there, get food, whatnot. So it was more of that kind of party atmosphere. And on that Saturday, we played at a theater there was a lot of people there, but it's a totally different atmosphere because it's not a bar. People are not getting food. It's earlier in the day. It's a totally different vibe. It's like more of a sit down, kind of just listening audience. So I have to try to cater to the set to that kind of space, to that kind of emotion or whatever is going on in the room. So I think playing music is like that in itself is kind of a science. I think to try to figure that out. One of the things that I do a lot with Quantum is I try to, once I have the tunes hopefully together and feel like they're ready to go, I'll spend a whole bunch of time where I'll work on putting the songs together. Meaning I'll work on segues where I try to keep all of our music and whatever we do and that's one thing we do for any of our gigs is try to keep it as a continuous thing, so there's no downtime. There's no like play a tune, stop, blah blah blah, talk a little, go into another song, and then you do the same thing over and over again. I try to not talk too much and just try to concentrate on the music and just kind of build it up just from the musical kind of thing. And I'll say something at some point or talk to the audience or make an announcement or thank people for coming out or whatever. But I usually don't do that very often. Or when I do, it's pretty minimalist when I will do that. Um, so I think of it in terms of like with Quantum, working on curating the tunes and putting them together into itself, that's a science. So that's another thing that I have to really work on a lot in curating that and making songs where they can bleed into the next. Other ways and ways that I do that, I try to mix things up. Sometimes I'll do it where I'll intentionally try to mix tunes together that are similar to some degree. They have maybe a heavier dance vibe, or maybe they might even be at the same tempo. Sometimes that's easier to do, especially if you have people dancing, and especially if you have the momentum going and you feel like things are cooking. But on the other side too, what I try to do is sometimes I will like go from one extreme to another, meaning like I'll play maybe a heavier dance tune, but then go suddenly into a pure ambient tune, and then go into some mid-tempo instrumental kind of a tune. And that's that's a lot of fun to do with. We did a show at Gypsy Rose Tavern recently, and I did that where I tried to really, mix things up that way because it's a different setting. It's not really a dance space per se, but it's a bar, and so in that into itself is a lot of work to try to figure out and try to put together, but it's a lot of fun and it's a real big challenge. And that's aside from just working on the songs and creating the songs and also writing. I've been writing new material for the band, so I've been I usually always make that the priority. But our next show, we have a show coming up in July, which I'm very excited about, and I believe that's July 21st. It's this month, and I'm really excited about that show. We're going to be playing a 2 hour Quantum set at Sophia, which is this bar in Belfast, which is a super awesome place. It's this tiny little bar in town, right in downtown Belfast. But they've been doing more and more events this year. They started doing lots of events this winter, and I've gone there pretty decent amount of times. I've gone there a few times to see music, and I've gone there for drinks a couple times. It's right in town, but it's such a cool little space. It's tiny, but I got us. We have a Quantum show there coming up this month, so I'm really excited about that. We'll be doing like a 2 hour set, and we'll see what happens. It's our first time there. I That was a place on my radar for quite a while to try to get us a gig there. So we'll see how things go. I'm very excited about that. I just started promoting that kind of thing because I've been wanting to get a little bit of a jump start with promotion because it helps, I think. So, and then the other show that we have coming up, which I'm super excited about, we're going to be doing a show at Primo this month, and that's a show I did not think would be happening because Primo is, not the kind of place I thought we would be playing at. But Primo is a pretty amazing, and it's an amazing restaurant, and they've been doing music there quite a bit, and I've been fortunate enough to be playing there quite a bit. I have a gig there tomorrow, but it's a super cool space. So very much looking forward to playing a Quantum set there, and there'll be promotion for that coming up. So very excited about that. There'll be like a 2 hour set. It will be in the afternoon on a Sunday, and then the next, and then we're going to be also the next show that we're going to be doing around that time is we're going to be doing another radio show on WRFR with Quantum on Spencer Roulard's Electronica show, and we'll do like a live hour, like a live set for like an hour. Very excited about that too because we did a show. I think it was probably about a month ago there, but for some reason the show wasn't recorded. So Spencer's really great, so we're gonna try to get all that stuff taken care of so we can have the show hopefully recorded and all those things. So yeah, very excited, and got some other things I'm trying to work on right now with Quantum. So it's been great because we've been busy. We've been playing every weekend almost, and it's been a lot of fun. So today's show is on a movie that I have actually been wanting to get to for quite a while. I am a huge fan of animated movies, especially uh, anime, Japanese, the the beloved Japanese style of filmmaking. That's it's actually one of my favorite styles. I love anime. I have not stayed up with a lot of newer anime. I'm more of an old school guy. Ninja Scroll, Akira, um, Appleseed, so many great classics. There have Anime obviously has exploded in the last 15 or 20 years, where it's been fully embraced by the West and also in America in particularly. It's on one hand it's very on one hand it's very hard to find a kid or someone in their 20s that's like say into like I don't know emo music or into hipster rock and roll or whatever, but most kids now are into anime. But a lot of the times what I find when they say they're into anime, they're into more of like the American anime, but which is based on the Japanese culture, but it's a different thing. But there's a lot of great anime, and it's been overall it's has exploded as a scene, and it's been totally embraced. I still think it's a case of like, on one hand, it's great. Anime has gotten so popular because it's been around since like the early 80s, in Japan, and it's been a regular staple of Japanese culture for years. And but for many many years, for years and years and years, even decades, it was never really embraced by Western culture. I had a friend and some friends that were really into that when I was a kid, into that style, and that's how I got exposed to it. And I've always loved it. I'm more old school when it comes to that stuff. And on one hand, it's interesting because now Japanese culture or anime is embraced by middle America pretty much. It's kind of been almost adapted or adopted as like as American as apple pie. Now everybody is aware of that style, and I think it's cool in some ways because maybe the kids will like that are into say I don't know newer things like Avatar or what have you. They'll they'll be like, oh, okay, I want to maybe I'll check out something that came out before it, or maybe something that influenced this particular style. Um, and sometimes I feel like that doesn't happen because of the situation and because of it's a generational thing. But I think overall it's pretty cool that that's happened. Um, it's happened also with electronic music, big time, and I think it's on two perspectives. It's a good thing, and maybe it's kind of a bad thing. I don't know. Overall, it's probably a good thing. And like with electronic music being my favorite style, you know, um, all of the music I grew up on, from the '90s and '80s, the electronic music, a lot of that stuff was kind of looked at as being kind of like underground, like an underground style. Very similar. I think of it in terms of like how anime is. Very similar as far as it being this thing that was underground or embraced by a particular culture for a long time, but never really given the time of day by the mass culture. And both of those genres, electronic music and anime, have exploded. So now they are both, embraced by uh, anyone and everyone. It's particularly in the West or in America. Most electronic music has its origins in from Europe. Particularly England. So it's interesting. Most of the music that I grew up on, most of the electronic music that I grew up on, particularly say around the house music scene from the late '80s, '90s, and upward, that stuff was pretty underground for years and years, and it still is. And it's never been embraced by you know your average college kid or your average younger American. It's always been a particular kind of scene that's been more underground, huge, but always very very underground for the most part. A lot of DJs that I've always loved, Anthony Papa, Deep Dish, and Sasha, and all those guys. And then obviously one of the biggest names in electronic music, Daft Punk. They've been around for years and years. They recently broke up the last couple of years, which was, I think, pretty sad. But I grew up listening to them and a huge fan, particularly around their first few albums. But they're they were huge as far as becoming music icons. Pretty much as big as like Michael Jackson. But they had been doing it for years and years and years and years, and it wasn't until like later into their career where they got they reached this point of superstardom. And with electronic music, there was an artist I see that where that whole thing shifted. There's a this guy David Guetta who is a started off. I think he's from Switzerland, and he basically was a DJ for many years in Europe. He did a lot of progressive house music and various things, but he was strictly a DJ for years. And then over time he started doing remixes. He started getting known, building a name a little bit on the side from being a DJ, as being a guy who could like remix, you know, other people's tracks, and then from there, he got some big hits from those remixes, and so his name grew even more. And then from there, he also started to collaborate with a lot of pop stars. He started collaborating with like Brianna and Alicia Keys, where he would do these remixes, but then it moved into where he was doing their production, and he became a producer. So he became, he was at the start of his career, he was strictly a DJ. Then he started doing remixing, and then he started working as a collaborator, and he's also like put out his own original albums also. But when he branched off into collaborating with pop artists, he suddenly was this giant rock star, and he got embraced by everyone. Another DJ that emerged to came out of the underground DJ culture, but then eventually became huge. But David Guetta was at the next level as far as commerciality. Paul Oakenfold, really great DJ, really great electronic artist, huge influence on me. Somebody I've been listening to for forever. But he kind of went the same route to a degree and became huge. He was most well known. He was like the first DJ to go on tour. He went on tour with U2, where he was the opening act for, at that time, the biggest band, in the world, especially in the 90s. And still one of the biggest bands in the world. So that propelled his career and electronic music. But what David Guetta did, it became even bigger. And suddenly, electronic music became embraced by by middle America. A lot of kids who liked R&B and hip hop suddenly were like, oh, this is kind of like dance music. This is house music. So suddenly it became this huge thing. And on one hand, it's like, a lot of people only know Daft Punk, say for instance, from Random Access Memories, their last studio album, Get Lucky. They only know it from that period, or from they don't know anything before that. And also David Guetta, they don't know anything about all the stuff he had been doing before, and then as well as all the other DJs that were doing that kind of music. So it's an interesting balance. On one hand, it brings the light to, where a lot of these artists can be even more successful, but it also goes askew a little bit as far as, I think, quality, because I don't really think a lot of that newer stuff is very good. It's kind of trendy, and it's kind of forgettable, and it's not probably going to be around for very long, or it's probably not going to be, you know, it's kind of the flavor of the month. So it's a balance, and I think with anime it's the same kind of thing. There has been this explosion, and a lot of the stuff that's popular is it's okay, it's all right, but the old school stuff, the more, you know, the deeper cuts, that stuff I think will be around forever. The other stuff, I don't know, it's kind of trendy, but this anime, this is actually, well, this is Japanese anime, but it was produced by America. And I've talked about my love of comics. I've done lots of shows on comic book movies. I have also really talked a lot about my my fatigue around comic book movies. I have really lost pretty much all my fire to go see any movies in the theater. I've been really disappointed with things that have been coming out, and just everything seems very mediocre. But that being said, my favorite superhero of all time has always been, will always be, the Batman. I think, as far as the Batman character, obviously the Christopher Nolan movies, particularly The Dark Knight, and obviously Batman Begins, those are just incredible movies. The Dark Knight Rises, not so much. I think that movie kind of failed pretty miserably. That was a big letdown. Um, and I feel like Batman Begins, and I love Christopher Nolan. I think he's an amazing director. I think he's a visionary. I think Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, especially The Dark Knight, just those movies are masterpieces. Arguably the best version of the Batman. But The Dark Knight Rises, really, I felt it fell flat. It was really long. It was drawn out. There were a lot of situations in the narrative of the story where it kind of became ridiculous and a little bit silly. Um, Particularly around, and especially around certain characters that they tried to introduce in the storyline, which were not very good, especially around Catwoman, and also the Catwoman character, and also Robin's character. It was kind of terrible, and even Bane, really good on one hand, a really great character in the Batman mythology, an amazing character, but there was a lot of missteps. There was a lot of things of where it just went askew, I feel. And it was a very long movie. It was kind of bloated. It kind of got ridiculous. But anyway, and I kind of feel like that last movie, Dark Knight Rises, tarnished the trilogy, and I feel like it's not complete. It's not a complete trilogy. And so, you know, and I love the old school Batman with Tim, that was directed by Tim Burton. I think those movies are great with Michael Keaton. I mean, that's an amazing film. I love that movie to death, and that's an example of Tim Burton being kind of at the height of his power as a director, and also as a real visionary artist. Amazing, amazing movie. Um, and and there's been a whole slew. There's tons of Batman movies that have come out. I even like which is a movie that a lot of people hate, but I actually really like it just because of how so over the top that it is, and that it's fun, and that it doesn't take itself so seriously, but it's just so entertaining. I actually really love the Batman and Robin movie with George Clooney and Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze. The reason I actually really love that movie a lot is because again, it's I grew up watching the Adam West TV show, which is great. It's super stupid, super campy, it's so ridiculous, but it's so fun, and it's like a carnival ride. And I love it. I love my favorite kind of Batman incarnation is the Frank Miller, the Dark Knight version. I like the darker, more brooding Batman, where the vigilante aspect of Batman is emphasized a little bit more. I like that film noir kind of aesthetic also. I love that version. My favorite version of Batman is old Batman, when Batman is a much older man, but he's still a lion. That is my favorite, kind of portrayal of Batman. There's been a couple of really great versions of that in the anime series that have been amazing, and it's super badass. That's my favorite. But I think Batman and Robin works. The one with George Clooney, for me at least, works because it's so much like the TV show, and it's so extreme, and it's the way the movie was created and shot, and it because it's so silly and so goofy and so ridiculous, and it's visually it's beautiful to look at. I think because it goes all the way into that campy world, into the the harkens so much back to the Adam West TV show. I think because it goes there, it makes it great, and it's successful. It doesn't, it's not in the middle. It just goes all the way, and I just think it makes for such an entertaining movie. And I actually really love that movie. That's one of my favorite movies, as ridiculous as it kind of is to say that. And that being said, there's been tons of Batman animated movies that have come out, and this one is there's a lot of great ones, but this is probably my favorite. This is so badass, and that is Batman, Gotham Knight. This is so badass. Anybody out there, I know there's like billions of Matrix fans, and that trilogy is pretty mixed. Obviously, the first one being one of the greatest movies ever made. Possibly the greatest action movie ever made. Probably pretty much is. The rest of the movie's not so great, but there was around that time that the rest of those films came out in that trilogy. There was the Animatrix that came out, and it was basically a collaboration with American studios with all of these illustrators and writers from Japan, and they basically created all of these short movies that were like 15 to 20 minutes that kind of tied in with the whole Matrix world. And it was called the Animatrix. And that is amazing. Like, it's incredible. It's like, it's a masterpiece. And I remember when I first saw that, I was like, this is what the Matrix should have been. This is what the rest of the Matrix trilogy should have been. It was so creative, so dark, so violent, but just amazing, so utterly original, so much imagination. To me, that's like what the Matrix movies could have been, especially after the first one, where it just set the bar so high that it was ridiculous. But the Animatrix, amazing. Eventually, I'll do a show on that at some point. But the same people who were involved with that, all of the same creators, and there was a slew of about 15 or 20 different Japanese illustrators, directors, producers that were all from the anime world. It was this, and basically the same people who worked on the Animatrix also did this movie too. And this movie is just amazing. It's a collection of about six different short stories, basically, all in told in a anime style, and they basically each one portrays Bruce Wayne, Batman, in a different light, in a different kind of in a different setting, or in some kind of different universe, or it represents or it shows Batman or Bruce Wayne at a different stage in his life, and it is just amazing. So damn good. Um, so damn good. I have another anime Batman movie, which I can't remember the name of it, but it's also amazing. That movie is ties in with the whole Superman versus Batman storyline, but the centerpiece of that movie is old Batman, and it's so badass. But this is so amazing. It's so innovative. The animation on this is just ridiculous. It's the best I've ever seen, and this is my definitely my favorite. And there's two discs here. It's a beautiful steel case. I don't have this on Blu-ray. I should get this on Blu-ray, but I have this beautiful DVD steelbook, which is really really nice. It's a really beautiful collection. The artwork on here is just unbelievable. There's a bunch of special features, and I again, like I said, each individual episode is completely spectacular. So much in step with the Animatrix. I mean, it's literally the same team of artists, producers, writers, directors that worked on the Animatrix. They also did. Um, they also worked on this, and it's amazing. It's so the thing that's so cool about this collection is just um, how just incredibly original it is. It's so unlike anything that has ever been done around Batman's character. Um, it's it's staggering. It's truly staggering, and the music, the cinematography. There's this one episode on here with a really great classic Batman character, Deadshot, that is just so badass, and he's essentially this assassin, and it's it's just incredible, just incredible. This movie, I don't think that this. I don't know if it ever even got a theatrical run. It came out in 2008. Came out quite a few years ago, but I never hear anybody talk about this film, especially with the Batman series. But I have to say that this, and I was talking about Batman movies. Overall, my favorite Batman movie, which I have to say, I just think is just a masterpiece through and through, and totally captures the essence of Batman, is the Robert Patterson Batman, the Batman directed by Matt Reeves, which came out last year. To me, that's the my favorite live action Batman movie. I just think that's a masterpiece. And as far as anime goes, this overall is my favorite. And oh my god, if you're a Batman fan, this is the shit. Like it totally delivers the goods. And again, the thing that is so cool about this collection is just how there's so much imagination in it, and it really takes the character of Batman, the iconic superhero, and really puts him in these different in these very different environments and in these very different worlds, and they really give you like a different perspective, because Batman itself, his character, he's a very complex character. I mean, he's a very dark character. He is he struggles emotionally, with his reasoning, and why he's motivated to become this vigilante, and but yet he has this moral code. He realizes that, well, he can only go so far, and he will only go so far, but he'll do these things, and with this idea or idealism of justice, he'll push those boundaries and do things that are very questionable. And that's the thing that's so awesome about his character. And you know, he was born out of seeing the death of his parents in front of him. So that completely, um, shaped his mind and shaped his whole like way of how he operates. So it's just incredible. And this series, Dark Knight Gotham, Batman Gotham Knight, just really focuses on that and how complex he is as a character. Just amazing, just amazing. So this is Jason Dean at Film Fanatic. So thanks again for your support. I will be doing shows. My schedule has changed quite a bit. I don't do shows every day now, unfortunately, and it's mainly due to my schedule change. I'm gonna be so what's kind of happened lately is my work schedule has changed. So I I have a little bit less time as far as practice goes to a degree, and I try to work on music stuff and practice stuff, practice things in the morning before I go to work. And so I have a little bit less time, but it's still fine and great. But I try to just put all my time into doing that in the morning or so before I go to work, and then later at night if I can. But I try to. That's kind of what I do, and so I don't have quite the amount of time to do the videos. And if, I tried doing the videos with the new schedule, and it feels really rushed, and I'm not really enjoying it. So I'm doing the videos now on times of when weekends and days where I have totally for free, like a lot of weekends and stuff. So they're not going to be every day. It's going to be broken up, maybe a few times a week or whatever. So, but they'll still be coming your way. So thanks again for people coming on board, and a lot of people commenting on these videos. I really appreciate it. So we will see you next time. Peace.